Chapter 5, Section 3 is about slope-intercept form. This is a two-day lesson, or two-part lesson, so we'll do part today, part tomorrow, and by the end you should be able to write and graph linear relationships using standard form, slope-intercept form, and point-slope form. But today we're just going to work on slope-intercept form. Okay, some vocab words. Parent function is the simplest way to write a function. So for a linear function, which we've talked about as y equals mx plus b, the simplest way that it can be is just y equals x. That would mean our slope would be 1, and there would be no y-intercept. The y-intercept would be 0. Okay, so that y equals x, or f of x equals x, is the simplest form, so that is called our parent linear function. And the y-intercept is wherever our line crosses the y-axis. That would be your ordered pair. Okay, so when you have a graph, wherever your line crosses the y-axis, right here, that would be your y-intercept. Okay, for linear equations, there's 3 different ways to write it, and that's what this chapter is going to be all about. There's slope-intercept form, which we're talking about in 5.3, then there's standard form, and there's point-slope form. Okay, the slope-intercept form, like we've talked about, is y equals mx plus b. Okay, we're going to label our parts really quick. If you remember, m is your slope. And this time b, like they just told us, is our y-intercept. Okay, so wherever our line crosses the y-axis, that's what we put in this b spot. All right, so at the beginning, all they're going to ask you for is what are the slope and the y-intercept of this equation? Okay, well, remember that this is really y equals mx minus b in this case, or plus a negative b. Sorry, it's a b. So we're going to write down our slope is 5, and our y-intercept is negative 2. That's all they're looking for. What are the slope and y-intercept of this graph? This is our slope. This is our y-intercept. Now they're asking, how would this y-intercept change if the graph moved down 3 units? Okay, if we actually just moved it down, we would have to subtract 3 from that y-intercept. And that would give us our new y-intercept. Okay, what is the equation of a line with a slope of negative 4/5 and a y-intercept of 7? Okay, remember slope is represented by the m and y-intercept is represented by the b. So in our linear function, y equals mx plus b, we're going to plug negative 4/5 in for m and 7 in for b. And we get our equation. Okay, what is the equation of a line with a slope of 3/2 and a y-intercept of negative 1? Okay, we're just going to plug in again, much like the last one. Our slope is 3/2. Our y-intercept is negative 1. You're welcome to just write minus 1 or plus a negative 1. Both would give you the same. Okay, now it's going to get a little bit more complex. They're going to give us the graph and they're going to ask us to write the equation to represent that line. But we still need the same 2 things. Because this is linear, we have y equals mx plus b. We still need the slope and the y-intercept. Y-intercept is probably the easiest to find because it's wherever our line crosses the y-axis. So right there at negative 2, we know our b is negative 2. Then we need to find our slope. Okay, with a graph, you can just find 2 points and count your rise over run. So rise is 2, run is 1. That means we're going to go up 2 over 1, and it will get us on the line every time. So now I should be able to write my equation. Y equals 2x plus a negative 2. That is the equation for that graph. Okay, another one. Write an equation to represent this line. So we still need to find our slope and our y-intercept. Here's where it crosses the y-axis, so it crosses at positive 2 this time. Our slope looks like it's negative down 1 over 1. So it's just negative 1. So we're going to write our equation as y equals negative 1x plus 2. All right, even more complex. This time they want us to write an equation for the line that passes through these 2 points. They're telling us that it's a straight line. So I still have to find a slope and a y-intercept, but this time I'm going to have to do it with the slope equation. If you recall, the slope equation was y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so I'm going to label these as x1, y1, x2, y2. Then I can plug it into this equation. So I have negative 2 minus 3 over 5 minus 0. So I have a negative 5 over 5, which means my slope is just negative 1. My y-intercept, I can actually tell this one is going to be 3 because of that ordered pair. But if I didn't know that, I could plug my slope in. So y equals negative 1 x plus b. And then just pick one of these points and plug it in. So for example, I'm going to pick the point 0, 3, and I'm going to plug that in. I'll show you what I mean. 0, 3. So my y is 3, my x is 0, and I'm going to solve for b. So this negative 1 times 0 is 0. So I know that my b is equal to 3. So I found my y-intercept is equal to 3, and my slope is equal to negative 1. So my final equation should be y equals negative 1x plus 3. If I were to graph this, I would definitely cross through both these 2 points. All right, last one. Write an equation for the line that passes through these 2 points. Remember, if we have a 0 and in the x place and a negative 3 in the y spot, that's going to be your y-intercept right here. So our b is going to be negative 3. But our slope we're going to have to solve with our equation y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to label them x1, y1, x2, y2, and plug it in. So I have negative 3 minus negative 2 over 0 minus 8. Gives me negative 1 over negative 8, which is a positive 1 over 8, because negative divided by negative is positive. Okay, so now I should be able to write my equation. Y equals 1/8 x minus 3. Okay, on your own, quickly, just to make sure that you know what's going on, what are the slope and y-intercept of this graph? And then which equation represents the line shown? This would be a great place for you to pause, just double check, make sure you know what you're doing, and come back, check your answers with mine. All right, hopefully you got the same answers as I did. Day 1 homework today, page 310, 8 through 26 even, and number 60, and then your lesson quiz.